former federal prosecutor Renato Mariotti joining us now. He's the host of On Topic with Renato Mariotti podcast. You know, it's a very serious issue, but I just think about that juror. Who would have thought your dental issues and your appointment with your dentist would be making national news at the beginning of this trial? I mean, the whole thing is pretty wild. Let's start with the gag order issue. I'm reading some of our notes from our producer who's in the courtroom. Todd Blanche for the defense refuting the prosecution's claims, saying that Trump understands the gag order and that there was no willful violation. How do you think the judge will rule on this?
I think the judge is going to find that there were violations of the gag order. It's hard for me to understand how Mr. Blanche can say that with a straight face. I think there clearly are violations. I don't think that they're going to result in the former president being thrown into jail before the trial is over or anything like that. But there will be fines, and I think the judge is trying to figure out what leverage he has to try to move Mr. Trump, the former president, to try to get him in a spot where he's actually going to comply with court orders like everyone else.
Right. I mean, the challenge is laying a foundation for this case moving forward, setting up those parameters so it doesn't become a circus. Opening statements from both sides, Renato, what did you make? Who had the stronger argument to begin that foundation?
Well, look, the prosecution always has the upper hand in a criminal trial. If anyone tells you otherwise, they haven't tried criminal cases themselves. The prosecution always has the upper hand. The jurors are always going to find that presentation compelling because prosecutors are perceived by jurors to wear the white hat, and they were throwing a lot out there. There's conspiracy, there's a scheme to interfere with the election, and so on. But I thought the defense made some strong points, and I do think there are some fault lines here that could lead to a path for the defense to have at least a partial victory, whether it's a hung jury or knocking the felonies down to misdemeanors. There are definitely paths to victory for the defense. And I thought that the opening was stronger than I expected from the defense.
Some call this a distortion of the criminal justice system, that this case never should have been tried, that there was no law broken here. How would you argue against that?
Well, I would kind of say that those two statements are two different things. In other words, that whether or not the case should be brought is different from whether was a law broken. I mean, there's clearly a law broken here. There are false business records in the books and records of the Trump Organization. I don't think that there's any serious dispute about that. There's a question about whether it was done to conceal another crime. And there's also a question of, was this the right case to bring? Okay, but I don't think somebody's serious if they're going to say that it actually, in the books and records of the Trump Organization, these payments made to Stormy Daniels were in fact payments for legal services. I don't think that's actually the case.
Testimony will continue with David Peckers, the former CEO of the National Enquirer today. He didn't have a whole lot of time on the stand day one. What are you anticipating? How critical might his testimony be today?
You know, I think his testimony is important to tell the story and set the stage. You know, when you try a case, it's like actually putting on a play. And each of my witnesses, if I'm trying a case, are essentially actors in the play. And really what I'm trying to do with the first witness is set the stage, tell the story, introduce the story to the jurors. And that's what I think the importance of his testimony is. What is a catch and kill scheme in terms of hush money payments? What was his role in that election? What was he doing? What was his relationship with Trump? A lot of background that's going to be important for the jury as they consider the rest of the evidence in the case.
Legally speaking, with this jury, are you concerned at all about fair and impartiality when it comes to a jury regarding a Trump case?
No, I mean, I think one thing about our legal system is that we have had trials of all sorts of people, and ultimately they've been able to have a fair trial. In other words, you know, when I was a federal prosecutor in Chicago, we had a trial of Rod Blagojevich, who had been the governor until he was arrested and then impeached. You know, we had a trial of R. Kelly here in Chicago, and we had one in New York, even though he was the subject of documentaries. O.J. Simpson had a trial, Bill Cosby. Plenty of people who are famous have trials, and I do believe that Donald Trump can receive a fair trial. I do think, regardless of political party, I think that the former president's attacks on the legal system and on the jurors, I think that's something that everyone should condemn. That's fairly unfortunate.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.